And particularly in India, people love telling stories. Yeah. We love to tell stories. You just have to pull up a chair and sit down and, mean that you'd listen and you'll have gold.
Somebody who I know said something very interesting. He said, we are increasingly living in an age where we're not listening anymore, we're waiting. You seem to have put a lot of importance to listening. Do you think that space is shrinking now?
It's funny you ask this question because it's a great question. That's a great quote. But also listening is what made me a journalist. So I'll hark back to when I was a lawyer. And you might not be able to tell now given, the way my life has gone, but I was an extremely shy person. I was a very introverted person. And I used to love journalism, but I used to feel like reportage is not something I can do. I had a couple of columns with The Hindu, with Mumbai Mirror, etc. But I was like, writing opinion is fine, but reportage is not something I would be able to do because I cannot just walk up to strangers and talk to them. I'm terribly, terribly shy. And then I read this interview of Joan Didion, where she talked about how she was introverted and she was shy. And what she realized was that when she went to interview people, because she had no urge to talk, people spoke to fill up the silence, and she got much more out of her subjects than most other journalists did. And I took that cue and it worked like magic. And particularly in India, people love telling stories. Yeah. We love to tell stories. You just have to pull up a chair and sit down and, mean that you'd listen and you'll have gold.
I also think that that ideas are also something that would ideally have fascinated you with the career trajectory that you've seen. Ideas are also increasingly becoming subservient to an agenda, sometimes being weaponized as well. How are you treating ideas currently?
So that is where Indian History Collective comes in, because like you said, the sort of reductive way in which we are approaching ideas, the labeling of ideas even before they've been fully formed. I mean, the minute I start thinking a thought, I'm already slotted into one camp or another, one silo or another. And I think that was really getting to me. And my way of kind of dealing with that ended up being going back into history to see where we were coming from and reading some of the most rich debates that were happening, that were at the sort of grassroots of what we became, what we were to become as a country, as a republic, as a nation, as a people, and of course world over. I'm not just talking specifically, and history had also become a political sort of battleground, right? And that's where Indian History Collective came in. We were like, I am privileged enough to be able to access books. I grew up in a household full of books. I grew up in Calcutta. I also come from a, upper middle class, upper caste family. So obviously I have access to books and education, but we are going on lamenting sort of fake news and the WhatsApp universities and all of those things without really asking ourselves who is making books and original material available for people to read. And that's where Indian History Collective comes in. Frankly, it's a refuge for me to be able to go back into history and dive into the genesis of so many ideas that are fundamental to how we live and think about ourselves today.